UFC Fight Night, Yadong Song versus Chris Gutierrez. Welcome to another UFC prediction and analysis video presented by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. He goes by Zan, I go by Harris. As usual, fight-by-fight breakdown and analysis from that betting perspective specifically. We want to let you know which fights are worth the value, which fights to avoid, which underdog has the best shot at winning, and some parlay action toward the end of the video as well. Make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel at Boxing MMA Picks. And most importantly, we want to hear from you in the comments when it's all said and done. For this UFC Fight Night, it is taking place at the Apex in Las Vegas. We have 11 fights overall, 6 of them on the prelim, 5 of them on the main card. Let's get started right away. Fight number 1 of our prelims, we are looking at Rayanne Amanda versus Talita Alencar. For Rayanne Amanda, or Rayanne dos Santos, she's making her UFC debut. She's on a 3-fight winning streak. Competed on Dana White Contender Series last year. She lost to Denise Gomes on that, so not too bad of a loss considering what Gomes has done in the UFC so far. Nonetheless, 8 of her 14 wins via submission. She is introduced as a BJJ practitioner. In terms of her striking, pretty decent. She's patient. The movement's good. She's balanced. Her technique is solid from what I've seen. Doesn't really overswing. Has a good pace. Has good activity to her striking as well. I do like her striking speed. I like her hands specifically. Doesn't really have one-punch power, but she can be explosive. And of course, to her grappling credentials, she is comfortable in those clinching situations. She can land takedowns. She can work her top control. And of course, she can find those submission opportunities as well. Talita Alencar, on the other hand, is also making her UFC debut. She's undefeated, 4-0 and 1 draw. 3 of her 4 wins via submission. She fought on Dana White Contender Series in September as well. That's where her draw came from. She is introduced as a BJJ fighter as well in this one. A lot of striking from the outside, a lot of movement around the ring, but she's not afraid to engage. She's not afraid to close distance, not afraid to force her way in with her striking. She will actively look to play that clinch game. She will actively look for takedowns as well, and really good smothering top control when she gets it. Definitely a high-level grappler and high-level grappling she's showing in her MMA fights. Both fighters introduced as grapplers. I think that Alencar's ground game, it might be more effective or at least more intentional. But I do think that there is a wide disparity in the striking. I think Alencar is aggressive with her pace, and her hands can be effective, but Alencar doesn't really have the cleanest striking technique. So I do think that Rayanne dos Santos is a lot cleaner of a striker. She can be a lot more effective. And even if Alencar successfully lands takedowns early, not only is Rayanne more, just as skilled on the ground for the most part, but I think she's going to make it a lot harder as this fight progresses for Alencar to land takedowns. So from there, I can see Rayanne pulling away as the higher level striker in this matchup. So my pick, Rayanne Amanda, Rayanne dos Santos, whatever you want to call her. She's going to be my pick to get it done in this favorite spot here.
Yeah, this is one of those fights where one fighter is just a one-trick pony. Alencar is going to try to get this to the mat. I think it's going to be hard because dos Santos is she's low level, but she has 20 fights, right? And she's in this game. And when you look at Alencar, she only has 5 MMA fights. And if she doesn't get the submission in the first round, Alencar's gonna have a hard time. On the Contender Series, her cardio did not look good. This is a step up in competition slightly because we have a fighter that has good takedown defense and will be the better striker. I don't think dos Santos is an amazing fighter, but I think she's good everywhere. And the cardio, I think that's going to be a big factor in this fight. So I'm going to go with dos Santos. If she can survive the first round, I don't think Alencar has much left to get it to the mat and on the feet. She's not good there at all. So I'm going to go dos Santos to get the win here.
Second fight of our prelims, Tatsuro Taira versus Carlos Hernandez. Taira unanimous decision win over Edgar Chairez. That was back in July. He's still undefeated at 14-0, 4-0 in the UFC now. Still just 23 years old, so expect him to improve on a fight over fight basis. But as of right now, striking is very clean, patient, fights from distance, really light on his feet, and effective movement, in and out movement, fakes and feints, things like that. Really sharp with his calf kicks. He picks his shots really well. It's more the methodical, technical side of things from a striking perspective. The ground IQ is there as well. 7 takedowns landed in 4 UFC fights so far, so he can resort to takedowns when needed. Effective level changes and takedown entries, effective top control, and half of his wins are via submission. So again, very well-rounded. Also super composed, good IQ, definitely a really, high-level prospect and a rising prospect in the UFC. Carlos Hernandez, on the other hand, beat Denis Bondar. That was back in June. He fights from the outside, decent footwork, combinations are solid, not afraid to engage with his opponents at all. Definitely has that toughness factor about him. No real intention behind his punches, however. 9 wins, 0 via KO TKO. So I don't expect punching power to be a factor here in this fight. Also, again, a bit of a one-trick pony, just 65% takedown defense. He's given up at least a takedown in each of his UFC appearances, including his Dana White Contender Series fight. So this is going to be a fighter that is a little bit one-dimensional from the perspective of primarily relying on the striking. But I'll keep this really short because Taira is such a big favorite. I think that's with good reason. I'm Tatsuro Taira all day in this spot. I just don't see Hernandez as a threat. I think that Taira has the advantage pretty much everywhere in this fight. He should be able to dictate where the fight goes, should be able to exploit Hernandez's lack of takedown defense, and should be able to end the fight pretty quickly if it goes his way. I think this could be probably one of the safer picks of the night. So again, I'm going Tatsuro Taira all day in this spot.
Yeah, I definitely think there's the chance of an upset here for Carlos Hernandez. Just being a well-rounded guy, being in these positions, having tough fights. Yeah, I think his experience, his style, just being decent everywhere. He was able to keep it on the feet with Bondar. In the striking in this fight, he might have, in my opinion, he might have a striking edge slightly in this fight. He might be able to push that striking pace. So I definitely think there's a chance of an upset, but I think Tatsuro Taira has this fight. I think eventually Tatsuro Taira is going to get, because he's getting a lot of love from Vegas, right? Being such a big favorite. I think eventually he's going to get checked, and I think someone's going to beat him when he's a 3 or 4-1 favorite. I'm just not sure it's Carlos Hernandez. He doesn't really stand out anywhere specifically, and Tatsu, he's just going to want to get this to the mat, use that wrestling, get the back, get some control if he can get the submission. He has lost position before in other fights, but I definitely believe even though Hernandez is a black belt, and I don't believe Tatsuro Taira is a black belt, Tatsu has shown that like there's levels with black belts because he is submitting guys like what's that guy he submitted not his last fight, but he was submitting guys like one sec here, a good submission against Jesus Aguilar, who's known as a submission guy. He submitted CJ Vergara, who has decent grappling. So I think he's going to be able to shine here. I think he's going to be able to get it to the mat, use that wrestling. And again, on the feet, like Harris said, he's good there as well. So he could definitely do some damage there. But I'm not sure who's better. So I think he needs to use that grappling, get control, get the back, look for a submission. If not, just win that round, do it again the second round. And I think it's his fight. So I'm going to go Tatsuro Taira. But I don't like the odds here at all. Because I think there is a chance here for an upset here.
All right, fight number 3 of our prelims. Let's talk Luana Santos versus Stephanie Egger, a women's bantamweight fight here. Egger lost to Irina Alexieva back in April. She's a judo-style fighter, judo black belt. She's okay in the stand-up, decent jab, decent straight punch, decent movement, fairly basic, all things considered, but her striking is serviceable. Doesn't really handle pressure too well, but she will use that sort of disposition to her advantage with her judo. Pretty solid on the ground, decent takedown defense, but also good clinch. good judo takedowns, again, in those compromised positions, good top control as well when she gets it, good positional improvements as well. She does know what she's doing down there, and and in general, she's a veteran, right? She's experienced as an MMA fighter. Luana Santos, on the other hand, beat Juliana Miller. That was in her August debut. She's introduced as a judo style fighter, interestingly enough, as well. She's going to want to work her striking from the outside. A little bit of switch stance, expect fakes and feints and level changes in her style. Picks her shots really well, has an effective jab, has good combinations. She's going to look to close distance and work her clinch game at some point in this fight. And to that point, she is good with her takedowns. She is good with her top control. She can chain wrestle. The ground IQ is definitely high. I'm looking at a fight with, two fighters that have similar skill sets, similar strengths, similar styles as well. Both of them with that judo style. Both of them like to fight from the outside with their striking. Both of them can land takedowns. Both of them are pretty decent on the ground. That said, I think that Santos could be a comfortable pick here. She's younger, she's more talented as a fighter. Her striking is cleaner. I think her striking's more dangerous as well. And most importantly, she can implement pressure, which can be an effective strategy against Stephanie Egger. I think that Santos has much higher ground IQ, all things considered. On top of that, I should say. And again, just being the younger fighter, the more talented fighter, the more dynamic fighter, I'm gonna have to go with Luana Santos. I don't necessarily look at Egger as a high level opponent, though this could be a challenge for Santos. But nonetheless, I think that she's better pretty much everywhere in this fight, and Luana Santos is going to be my pick as a result.
I think when I see a fight like this, man, I think this is pretty mid level women's fight, and these are the type of fights that are really hard for me to decide, because some of these fights you feel good on one side and the fight just comes out completely different. When you look at Luana Santos, she's, I believe, 23, 24. She's a young fighter. Can work out where she's just improving each fight, or it could be a situation where she's just not ready. And she could get, because this is a big level up fighting Stephanie Egger. And you have to look at Stephanie Egger being a judokai. If she comes into this and this is a grappling fight and she turns out to be the better grappler in this fight, she can easily, not easily, but if she is the better grappler and she's a bigger girl, she might be able to win the fight with the grappling. So I don't know the level of Santos's grappling. Egger is a world level judokai, high level. So again, she could come out here, out grapple Santos and win the fight. But I got to go with Santos, 23. She should be improving this in each fight. Egger, again, not high level. But again, I think she could pull it off Egger on that side with her size, with her experience. But I'm going to go with Luana Santos. That striking advantage, I think, is going to be a big thing. If the grappling negates each other and it stays on the feet, I got to go with Santos. She's aggressive, throws heavy haymakers that land. And I think she can hurt Egger in that position. So I'm going to go Luana Santos to get the win.
Fight number 4 of our prelims. Let's talk Steve Garcia versus Melquizael Costa. Now this is a fight I believe that was supposed to take place last week, if I'm not mistaken. But nonetheless, let's talk about a Steve Garcia 2-fight winning streak. He beat Shayulan Nwernembeke back in April. Pretty solid with his hands, light on the feet, jab is solid. He can put those combinations together. He's not afraid to engage whatsoever with his opponents. Look for forward pressure out of him. Fights at a high pace, especially early in the fight. Almost a killer be killed type of style. To that point, he can leave himself open to counters. He can be a little bit chinny, though just one of his 5 losses are via KO, TKO. And he has a bit of a ground game as well. He can land takedowns. 4 takedowns landed in 5 UFC fights so far, so pretty balanced from that perspective. And he has 94% takedown defense on top of that, which should be relevant for this fight as he goes up against Melquizael Costa, who beat Austin Lingo back in July. As a striker, pretty patient. Good jab, a lot of kicks. His, he looks controlled with his striking. Good consistent pressure on the feet. Good combinations as well. Really like the striking IQ. You look at that fight versus Austin Lingo, for example, he outstruck him 100-39. That just sort of lets you know the striking prowess that he has. Just 42% takedown defense, but he can also be the one landing takedowns. He has a lot of jiu-jitsu experience as well. He can work his way back to his feet if he is taken down. Just in general, well-rounded fighter. Striking looks really good. I think that's what stands out the most with him. I think it's a good spot for Melquizael Costa. Although I will acknowledge that, there is sort of some value on Steve Garcia. To me, I'm looking at this as a striking fight. Both fighters capable of landing takedowns. Steve Garcia, really good takedown defense, but otherwise, stylistically, I can see a lot of this fight taking place on the feet. Like I said, Garcia can land those takedowns. It's not really an active part of his game. And though Costa can land takedowns, he may not need it. In addition to Steve Garcia having that takedown defense that I mentioned, when I think about the striking itself, both guys are capable of striking, but I do believe that Costa is the higher level striker, or at least the more dynamic striker between these two. And I believe that Costa has the higher striking IQ, and that will play a factor in this fight, as Garcia, like I mentioned, is a bit more of a killer be killed type of striker. A Costa finish would not surprise me in this fight. Otherwise, if that does not happen, I expect a unanimous decision win from Costa, just being the more patient, higher level, smarter striker throughout this fight. So Melquizael Costa is going to be my pick.
Yeah, this fight, I think I like Costa, man. I think Costa is going to be more prepared here because he's more dynamic with the striking. That's the first thing, and he's a really good counter fighter. Garcia is more head first, wants to knock you out. Straightforward lines. He's trying to get you right, just like Austin Lingo. When Costa fought Austin Lingo in his last fight, he was able to counter him all fight. Lingo's a tough guy, hard to put out, and I think those type of shots he's landing, I think he's able to land them here against Steve Garcia as well, who has a similar style to Lingo. Garcia definitely hits harder. He's looked good in his last two fights, but this is a style that Costa looked really good in his last fight. He's gonna be able to counter Link. He's gonna be able to counter Steve Garcia. Uses kicks, really good kicks, really good hands. But the best thing is the movement, the footwork, just evading really good defensively, evading the shots, and then obviously countering right after. So I really like Costa in this spot. I just think he's levels. I think he's a guy that in a couple years, I'm not saying he's going to be a champion, but I think he's going to be in the top 10. I definitely think he has that potential. So I'm going to go Costa to get the win in this spot.
Fight number 5 of our prelims, Hyun Sung Park versus Shannon Ross. Hyun Sung Park coming in as a huge favorite in this one. He beat Sunguk Choi in his February debut, undefeated, 8-0. Comfortable on the feet, active lead hand. He's sort of always assessing his distance with that lead hand. Consistent forward pressure, a lot of fakes and feints. The hands are decent overall, decent combinations. They're not active enough, however, for me. He's one of those fighters that are very patient and very selective about what he throws. He does have a good regular calf kick, good stiff jab as well, good power as well. And he has shown a decent ground game, getting guys to the ground, finishing guys. Otherwise, expect him to be an effective striker for the most part with what I've seen. Shannon Ross, on the other hand, 3-fight losing streak. He lost to Jesus Aguilar back in July. Active switch stance. Look for a lot of fakes and feints and look for a lot of fighting from the outside with him. He's going to use his jab or at least try to use his jab to set up decent combinations. Good straight punches, good consistent pace. Doesn't quite have the best striking defense at times. Between his Dana White Contender Series fight, between his 2 UFC fights, the common theme in those losses where fighters were able to put pressure on him. Plus, on top of that, he's chinny, not really the most durable fighter. To me, when I look at this fight, again, Hyun Sung Park coming in as a huge favorite here, looks like the UFC pretty much might be done with Shannon Ross here. Again, 3 losses in a row and doing him no favors in this matchup. I do think that this should be a striking match. I'm taking nothing away from Shannon Ross. I think he is a capable striker, especially that we have seen Hyun Sung Park dropped before. So I mean that alone actually should tell you that there could be some value on Shannon Ross here because it's not like Hyun Sung Park is the highest level fighter either. That said, Shannon Ross has not been durable. Ross has not shown that he can compete at this level, and Park should be able to implement a pressure style against Shannon Ross successfully. I can see both guys having moments to the point of Ross having some value, but I can see, the fight changing the moment Hyun Sung Park lands something significant. So I'm going to go with Hyun Sung Park to get it done. I will say the odds are probably too steep at this, although I do feel pretty comfortable picking Hyun Sung Park to get it done.
Yeah, I couldn't pick Hyun Sung Park at such. I can't bet this at these odds. It's almost unbettable. This guy's pretty much a newcomer in the UFC. Shannon Ross, yeah, he has me looking good, but skill for skill, when you really look at the way these guys fight, they're pretty close in terms of level. Shannon Ross has fought on some really tough guys. If he comes in here, doesn't get hit in his face, he could win the fight, in my opinion. He could win a decision. The problem with Ross is his chin, though. And if he does get hit, he's shown that he can't take these shots. Hyun Sung Park has really good grappling, but he needs to get it there. He doesn't have the best takedowns to get the takedown, to get the fight to the mat. But on the feet, he's competent on the feet. And he is able to land that right. He's able to land the lefts. He's able to mix it up. And I think at some point he's going to land on Shannon Ross. Shannon Ross is the last fight against Jesus Aguilar. I think it was the first or second punch he got finished by a grappler. The guy, it was his first or second punch landed in the fight, and he couldn't take it. He went right down. So I can't trust that chin. So I'm gonna have to go with Sung Park. Betting it, I would not at these ridiculous odds. I would definitely take a shot at Shannon Ross as an underdog. For the channel, making a pick, Sung Park should land at some point and knock out Shannon Ross.
Final fight of our prelims: Song Kenan versus Kevin Jousset, or Jousset, I should say. Kenan Song, unanimous decision win. That was over Rolando Bedoya back in August. He's a striker. He's patient. He fights from range, picks his shots well, really good striking IQ, like the kicks specifically. On top of that, he's a black belt, although he doesn't really use it, doesn't really try to land takedowns, not a wrestler by any means. But again, the grappling IQ is there. He is a black belt, like I said. Doesn't have the highest level of activity, doesn't really have a change in pace. He's pretty straightforward in his style. But like I said, he's a striker, and the striking is pretty good. The striking is pretty reliable, in his fights. Kevin Jousset, on the other hand, beat Kiefer Crosby. That was back in his September debut. He's more of a patient style of striking, constantly trying to make those reads, constantly trying to get his opponents to bite. Good calf kicks. He trains at City Kickboxing, so he's going to be true to that sort of technical style of striking. Notice that he doesn't really command control of the ring. His opponents are able to put him on that back foot pretty easily. And I don't really think much of his ground game. I have seen him land a takedown here and there, but nothing special with the top control. The takedown defense isn't necessarily anything special either. This should be a striking match for sure. I do think that both guys are capable with the striking. I'll keep the prediction part of it short. It's a close fight, I will say that, but I do like Jousset in this spot because I feel like he's maybe a little bit sturdier, maybe a bit more in your face. He also has some physical advantages in this fight: 2 inches in height, another 3.5 inches in reach. I think those physical advantages in this fight are things that he can take advantage of. To me, I feel like this is a fight where Jousset can offer a higher level of activity, a higher level of pace, and I think that could make the difference. If it does remain a slower paced technical fight, I feel that actually plays into Jousset's wheelhouse, although respectively it plays into Song Kenan's wheelhouse as well. So can't be overly confident here. I think both of these guys are capable strikers, but I do like Kevin Jousset in this spot to get it done.
Yeah, this is a real for me a 50-50 fight. Kevin Jousset in his last fight looked good. His jab, his low kick was really powerful when he landed it. His grappling, once he got a hold of the guy, kind of like John Jones, just took him down, got the submission. He looked really good in that position. So I think in this fight he needs to use that grappling. I think on the feet, when we look at the striking, Kenan Song is going to be the better striker. He's going to be quicker on the feet. He's more evasive defensively in the striking area. Kevin just said it's kind of like a zombie. He's really slow, stiff, no movement, no head movement, defensively terrible. He's the favorite in this fight, right? So again, it's a 50-50 fight. I think if Kevin Jousset uses his size, being 2 inches taller, being the stronger guy, probably the younger, most likely, obviously the younger guy. I think if he can get the grappling going, it's going to serve him right in this fight. Because on the feet, I think Kenan Song, as the fight goes, I think Kenan Song's going to run away with the striking. First round might look close, but second, third, I think Kenan Song's going to pull away. Who I pick in this fight, I'm going to go Kenan Song upset to pull this one off here. Kevin Jousset, I think he's legit. I think he has a really good jab. I think he has a really good low kick. But in the striking, that's about it. That's all I see, right? And defensively is terrible. His grappling's great, but he needs to get the takedowns. Kenan Song, when you watch this fight, when people get close, he moves right away, moves out of the way quickly. He's very evasive, very slithery in terms of like holding on to him. I think he's going to be well aware of the grappling problem on the Kevin side. So I'm going to go Kenan. I'm going to go with the vet here, keeping it on the feet, moving around, use that movement for 3 rounds and winning a decision.
All right, let's move on to our main card. We have 5 fights overall. Fight number 1 of our main card, Jung Park versus André Muniz. For Jun Park, 4-fight winning streak. He beat Albert Duraev back in July. He's introduced as a boxer, patient, good jab, good timing as a counterpuncher. He's not really one to initiate the offense, but he has good striking IQ, good distance control, and he can press forward pretty effectively as well. When he does press forward, it gives him the opportunity to land takedowns. He does land over 2 takedowns per fight. Just 69% on the takedown defense side of things. He's going to sort of try to at least rely on scrambling his way back up if he's taken down. But overall, I like his consistent pace. I like his consistent cardio. He's one of those fighters that never really slows down from round 1 all the way to the end of the fight. So that works in his favor for sure. He's taking on André Muniz, who has now lost 2 times in a row, losing to Paul Craig back in July. He's a grappler first. Of his 23 wins, 15 of them are via submission. Bouncy in the stand-up in terms of the striking. He has a long jab. We see he's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage. In this one, another 3 inches in height. Really long jab, likes to throw a lot of kicks, again, extending on that range advantage he's going to have in this fight. He's going to use that length, going to use that reach, going to fight from distance, a lot of fakes and feints, good timing, pretty well versed with his striking. Pretty big as a middleweight, pretty physically strong as a middleweight as well. And he's good at landing takedowns to set up that superior grappling. We see the numbers there at almost 3 takedowns per fight. He is lacking in terms of takedown defense. However, although he tries to sort of turn that into his favor from a grappling perspective. Now, Jung Park here is on a pretty good winning streak, but I have to say I'm a little surprised with the odds for this fight. I thought it would be a little bit closer because I do believe that this fight can go either way. You're looking at a striker versus grappler type of matchup, except Park has shown some grappling of his own with his last 3 wins via submission. And on top of that, Muniz has pretty decent striking, right? So I don't consider the one-dimensional fight, but again, I look at it as a fight for 2 fighters that can do a little bit of everything. I don't expect Muniz to be, completely outmatched on the feet. I think what will be tough for Muniz is how does he handle Park's consistent pace? We saw Park's last opponent, Albert Duraev, looked really good early, but then he started to fade, right? I can see a similar thing happening here with André Muniz. Now, my gut says that there's really good value on André Muniz as an underdog here. My gut says to go for the value, but I think I want to make a smarter pick here, and I think the smarter pick in this spot is Jung Park. Again, the consistent pace, the cardio, the striking advantages. I think that's going to serve him well. 5 of 6 of Andre Muniz's losses are via KO TKO, so durability is a problem as well from a chin perspective as well as a cardio perspective. So I say all that to say a Jung Park finish wouldn't surprise me at all. Otherwise, I think this is a spot where Jung Park can start to pull away in the latter stages of the fight. So my prediction is going to be Jung Park in this spot, although I will recognize there is some value on the underdog.
Yeah, I like Jung Young Park as well, man, to get the win in this fight. I think when you look at his opponent, Andre Muniz, he has 3-4 minutes of fight, right? And after that, this guy gasses out. He's not the same guy. So Jung Young Park, being a vet, 22 fights and is 17-5, good grappling, decent, good boxing, good striking, really good cardio against a guy Muniz, really good jiu-jitsu, bad cardio. It tells me that Jung Young Park's going to get this fight here, survives that first 3 minutes, and he's probably going to get a finish in the later rounds. I definitely see that. So I'm going to go Jung Young Park here. I really like him in this spot against a one-dimensional grappler who gasses. So I'm going to go Jung Young Park to keep it on the feet, outbox him, get the win.
Fight number 2 of our main card, Tim Elliott versus Sumudaerji. Tim Elliott lost to Muhammad Mokaev back in October. We know his MO at this point, super awkward, super unorthodox with the stand-up, a lot of movement, a lot of fakes and feints, a lot of level changes. He's going to keep that pressure on you, even if you are hitting him. Going to use that pressure to actively look for takedowns, almost 4 takedowns per fight, relentless on top, good chain wrestling, the grappling is there as well. It's really tough, right? Really relentless, as I mentioned. Plus, he has great cardio, a tough matchup for anyone, and a tough matchup for Sumudaerji, who lost to Matt Schnell. That was 17 months ago. That fight included, of course, that legendary comeback by Matt Schnell, if you recall that. Hasn't been the most active fighter throughout his UFC career, just 3 fights in 3 years. Still just 27 years old, however, so that shouldn't be too much of an impact on him. He is a southpaw, light on the feet, dynamic, high striking IQ, really patient as a striker, fights from the outside. We know he's going to be the taller, longer fighter in this fight. Good jab, good calf kick, good counter striking, good speed on the feet. Gave up a few takedowns in his last fight pretty easily, whereas historically he did have pretty good takedown defense. So not sure where he stands at this point in terms of his takedown defense. What's also potentially concerning, his chin, his cardio, his durability was put into question in that last fight. I mean, it was a war, so I can't really consider it a red flag yet, but it is something that you want to pay attention to. It's a super short notice fight for Tim Elliott in this spot. He's stepping in on just a few days' notice here. He is one of those fighters who are always ready to compete, so it's going to be interesting to see how much of a factor that could be for this fight. Now, my concern, if I'm Sumudaerji, is that 66% takedown defense, is that sort of not knowing at this point whether his takedown defense is good or not. And 66% tells me it's not good enough versus a relentless style of wrestling and takedown attempts that come from the side of Tim Elliott. Sumudaerji should have the better striking, but my concern, again, if I'm Sumudaerji, is that pressure and forward style from Tim Elliott, especially with that high level of activity that goes along with it. I'm also potentially worried about Sumudaerji's cardio again, despite being the fighter here with the full training camp. I think part of losing that war that he was in versus Matt Schnell, we saw him gas out, we saw it cost him. But it's a tough fight no matter what, right? Sumudaerji is the underdog in this spot. Tim Elliott is the favorite. Under those conditions, I think there's value for Sumudaerji. However, from a prediction perspective, I'm going to go with Tim Elliott here based on everything that I've mentioned. Ultimately, I'm banking on the short notice being a non-factor for Tim Elliott, and him being able to successfully implement that pressure, that pace, uses cardio, uses takedowns, uses chain wrestling. And I expect all of that to be too much for Sumudaerji. So Tim Elliott is going to be my pick in this one.
Yeah, what was Tim Elliott's last fight? What division? Was it flyweight?
Let's take a look here. I believe it was because it was Makayev, right? So that has to be 125.
Yeah, 125. And when you look at Sumudaerji, his last fight was against Snell.
Yeah.
That shit. Okay. So it's the same division. Okay, but this is in the bantamweight division.
Yep, just because of the short notice.
Okay, so this is in the higher weight class. Okay, so when you look at this fight, I think it's striker versus grappler. Sumudaerji, great striker, really good hands, good kickboxing, very dangerous in the striking. Tim Elliott, very decent everywhere, but he definitely shines in the grappling. And he shines when he has an advantage over the fighter in that area, which I think he has a big advantage in this fight. I think Sumudaerji needs to get a knockout. He needs to knock this guy out. Because over 3 rounds, Elliott's going to eventually grind on him with his wrestling heavy style and his really good top game. His top control is impressive. Once he gets on top, I don't think Sumudaerji is going to be able to get back to his feet. And when you look at Elliott, he's fought how many guys? I don't have his record in front of me, but this guy has fought. Yeah, this guy's fought a lot of guys, right? How many? What's his record? 19 and
13.
19 and 13, and 1 loss, right? So this guy's fought a lot of fights. He's never been knocked out against the high level guys that he's been fighting. Does he have a knockout loss there?
It says 1, which is still impressive.
Where's that?
I don't even know. You got to go way back at some point. That might be a mistake because I do not see it.
Yeah, I don't see a knockout. Even when I was watching his videos, I didn't see a knockout as well. That definitely, I think that might be a mistake.
Yeah, it looks like.
Yeah, this guy has a serious chin. So it's gonna be really tough for Sumudaerji to knock him out with 1 shot. I think once they get close, takedowns all fight. I think Elliott's a smart fighter. IQ is a thing that he has. He's gonna know he has a big grappling advantage, and he's gonna take advantage. He's not gonna stand there with this guy. So I'm gonna go Tim Elliott using that grappling, getting the win in this spot.
Fight number 3 of our main card, Nasrat Haqparast versus Jamie Mullarkey. Haqparast is on a 2-fight winning streak. He beat Landon Quinones back in September. He's introduced as a Muay Thai kickboxer, shows a bit of more of a boxing style, however, in the octagon. He good counterpuncher. He likes to stalk and control the pace, likes to cut the ring off pretty well. Not afraid to engage with his opponents. Has pretty good high IQ in terms of his combinations, in terms of, using those fakes and feints, using the jab, and again, being consistent with his pace. He will try to keep the fight standing, doesn't really land many takedowns. Plus, he has 78% takedown defense on top of that to be able to keep fights in the striking. Jamie Mullarkey has a unanimous decision win over John Makdessi in his last fight in September. Decent jab, good head movement, good level changes, a lot of movement in general. The boxing combinations look improved for Mullarkey. His calf kick looks a lot better. The striking defense looked improved. The power is there. 10 of his 17 wins via KO, TKO. He has the wrestling on top of that. We see the numbers almost 2.5 takedowns per fight. He's eventually going to look for that takedown attempt, or sort of look to play that clinch game against the cage at least. Don't expect any cardio issues from him, so he can keep that pace up for all 3 rounds. But we have to think about his durability. 4 of his 6 losses are via KO, TKO, so you got to watch out for that, especially going up against Nasrat Haqparast. Now, I will start by saying we're looking at the odds here. Haqparast minus 195. I think Mullarkey is definitely live in this spot as an underdog. Mullarkey goes for takedowns. Mullarkey lands takedowns. Mullarkey has pretty decent striking, pretty dynamic as a striker in his own right. We know he's going to have the height advantage in this one, the reach advantage in this one. We know his cardio is going to be there. So again, legitimate reasons to like Jamie Mullarkey in this fight. If nothing else, this is a 50-50 fight. But I am going to have to lean Nasrat Haqparast here for this one. Though Mullarkey won in his last fight, the striking numbers were close, right? On top of that, his last opponent, John Makdessi, had several moments of successfully putting pressure on Mullarkey. I think that Haqparast can be successful in pushing a pace just like Makdessi did at times, that Mullarkey won't be fully comfortable with. And I think, again, Jamie Mullarkey being a little bit chinny can impact him negatively in this spot. So I can see Haqparast landing something that drops Mullarkey, even if the round is close or even if the round is slightly leaning in Mullarkey's favor, that one knockdown can immediately swing it into Nasrat Haqparast's favor in terms of the round. And I can see that happening in multiple rounds. So I think that sort of X factor being there is enough to make me pick Nasrat Haqparast in this spot. But again, like I said, close fight, would not bet on it, or would potentially look at an underdog pick in Mullarkey. But from a prediction perspective, I'm going to go with Nasrat Haqparast.
Yeah, I think Nasrat's the side you want to be on in this fight. Mullarkey is a great fighter. This guy, really tough, moves forward, breaks down. He breaks fighters down, and he has that cardio that he uses as a weapon. That he can kind of el cardio these guys in the later rounds and just keep that pace up and kind of breaks some fighters. With Nasrat, we're looking at a guy that's going to be the better boxer. Nasrat has better striking power. And he has great takedown defense. So I don't think Mullarkey's be able to get this to the mat often or even get it to the mat. And I think Haqparast's cardio checks out. So Mullarkey's not going to be able to use that cardio as a weapon in this fight. I like Haqparast because he can hold his own in the cardio department, keep it on the feet, use that wrestling, that takedown defense that he has. And on the feet, I think Haqparast, I think he's able to land some bombs. Likely gets a knockout here because Mullarkey does not have the best. His defense is really not there. So I'm going to go Haqparast to get this done.
All right, let's talk co-main event of the evening. Anthony Smith versus Khalil Rountree Jr. light heavyweight fight here. Anthony Smith, split decision win over Ryan Spann. That was back in August. Now, a lot of people had Ryan Spann as the winner of that fight. I always think that's worth mentioning. Patient fighter. He is a veteran, good overall movement, fights from distance, a lot of level change, a lot of fakes, a lot of feints. He has a decent jab. He can get really effective with it. Decent right hand down the middle as well. Grappling and BJJ, I would say, is his specialty. Unfortunately for him, he's not really a wrestler, right? Less than half a takedown per fight, just 47% takedown defense. He gives up a lot of control time as well. So a lot of things to not like about Anthony Smith. He doesn't really have the best striking defense. That front leg stays exposed to that leg kick, for example. And that really could be a factor going up against a Khalil Rountree, who has, some of the nastiest kicks in the game. Rountree beat Chris Daukaus back in August. That's 4 straight wins for him now. And he's looked really dangerous over these past couple of fights for sure. Muay Thai stance, quick, explosive, good technically as well. He goes right for that calf kick game plan, very intentionally, very dangerous for anyone, puts good pressure on his opponents. He's explosive. He has power. He can be taken down. He can be controlled against the cage. So I can see Anthony Smith, potentially using that to his advantage. His opponents definitely have a path to victory when going up against Khalil Rountree. Another potential path is his cardio. In the past has been an issue, although I will say recently his cardio has definitely looked improved and doesn't really seem to be as much of a factor as it has been in the past for him. Let me keep this really short, though. I like Khalil Rountree a lot in this spot. Anthony Smith is technically live. He can find the way to get this fight to the mat, to make it a grappling match, to drag Rountree into deep waters. He has that veteran savvy to be able to do that, but it's unlikely in my eyes. I think we're going to see Rountree hurt Anthony Smith on the feet early in this fight. I think Rountree too explosive, too good as a counterpuncher. We've seen Anthony Smith finished many times, 9 of his 18 losses via KO, TKO. And I think he gets finished in this one, whether it's via the leg kicks or whether it's something that catches him clean on the chin. Khalil Rountree's my pick. Round 1 would not surprise me, but nonetheless, I'm going to keep it at just a prediction for Khalil Rountree Jr. to get it done here.
Yeah, I think this is a fight where Khalil definitely should get it done. But Khalil has shown that his cardio in the past, like he has slowed down heavily in fights in the past. It seems like he fixed it. He's definitely looked good in his last fights. His strike is going to be on a different level than Anthony Smith. So when they're standing, Khalil should be able to land the more dangerous shots, the more dangerous strikes. When it comes to boxing, though, Anthony Smith is definitely there in that area. He's going to be the taller guy. He's going to have the reach advantage. 6'4", 6'5". So in this fight, actually he doesn't have the reach advantage, but much taller guy. Um, if he brings us to the later rounds, his cardio could be better than Khalil Rountree. If Khalil does not come into this fight prepared to go 3 rounds, if he gasses early, Anthony Smith's a vet. He's been in this game. He knows what he's doing. And as bad as he's looked, as bad as he is, he's still a vet. And this guy, if he gets this fight into the second, third round, where Khalil is tired, Anthony Smith can definitely put on a pace to win the second, third round. But I'm gonna go with Khalil Rountree because he's been looking really good his last couple fights. Anthony Smith, I can't really trust at this point in his career. Khalil seems like he's improving, and on the feet, he's gonna be really, really dangerous. I can see him landing like a heavy right hand, knocking out Anthony Smith in the early goings of this fight. So I'm gonna go with Khalil Rountree to get the win by a finish, and I actually think he gets in the first round.
All right, let's talk main event. At that point, Song Yadong versus Chris Gutierrez. High stakes bantamweight fight here for our main event. Yadong Song beat Ricky Simone. That was back in April. Really good, well-rounded striker. Technically sound with his boxing. He mixes in the kicks really well. He's patient, has really good combinations, really good movement as well. Good patience, good decision making. Can't forget that he's still just 26 years old. So this is someone that's getting better every fight. And we're seeing that especially in his last couple of fights. His combinations are looking really good. His striking speed, I think, is something that's really underrated. Toughness is there, cardio is there. Again, consistent forward pressure and pace for Yadong Song. For Chris Gutierrez, he had a unanimous decision win over Alencar back in October. He's a high-level striker, good high striking IQ, picks his shots well, dangerous with the calf kick approach to his game. Definitely one of the best in the UFC at using it, probably the best, all things considered. Switches stance a lot, really light on the feet. He's going to use a lot of fakes, great distance management, very technical, very dynamic. And, that's sort of really his only approach. Don't expect any takedowns, just 71% takedown defense as well. Two guys that definitely want to keep this fight on the feet. I can see that happening for pretty much all 5 rounds. Song has been proving himself to be a high-level contender in this division. I think he has the potential to make it look easy against Chris Gutierrez here. And I think that factors into why he's such a big favorite. Gutierrez, we know, is a high-level striker, has high IQ, has a great calf kick, but I think his issue is more of a stylistic issue in this matchup. He's a bit more of a reactive fighter, right? He's a bit more of a technician, whereas Yadong has the versatility to kind of be in your face. Gutierrez fights from the outside, doesn't really fight at a high pace. And I think those are the two biggest factors striking wise that will work against him for this one. I think Song's striking is a lot more dangerous. On top of that, I think Song is a higher paced striker. On top of that, and again, I think Song has the ability to force the pressure on his opponents. So I don't think Gutierrez just has enough firepower in this fight. And potentially just doesn't have the firepower for these higher level opponents. I mean, we saw it in the Pedro Munoz fight. Though it will be a competitive fight, I think stylistically, Song is just really in a good spot to potentially make it look easy or to potentially just be too much for Chris Gutierrez as this fight goes on. So my pick is going to be for Song Yadong. I picked Song Yadong at least 7 or 8 times out of 10 in this spot. So I'm gonna just go with Song Yadong to be my prediction for this one.
Yeah, this is a interesting fight. It's gonna be a striking fight. Chris Gutierrez is not gonna be looking to take this to the mat. He's gonna want to dance around that ring, run around, point fight to victory. But he does have the potential to land a knockout blow. Song Yadong is going to be following him around the ring, cutting the ring off, using that boxing style. There's his good footwork to evade shots. When it comes to the grappling, Song Yadong is going to be the better grappler in this fight. Will he use it? I don't know, but that's definitely an avenue that he has a sizable advantage. But even if he doesn't get it to the mat, I think Song Yadong is on his way up. I think he's going to be a top three guy eventually one day in the UFC. I think this is just another fight for this guy. I think when you look at Gutierrez, his style, he moves around a lot, and in his fight versus Muniz, he couldn't really take that pressure. He was kind of scared once he got hit. He got hit hard, and I had bet Gutierrez in that fight. Watching that fight, he was moving good, looking good, and then once he got hurt, he was kind of scared the rest of the way. And Song Yadong's a different beast, and I think he's going to be able to hurt Gutierrez at some point, and then Gutierrez is just going to break down. And I think Song Yadong is going to finish this guy. I think he's going to finish this guy in this fight. So I'm going to go Song Yadong to get the win in the main event.
All right, let's take it to Vegas at that point, and let's consider some underdogs and let's consider some parlays as well. I will start by reading off our underdogs. Talita Alencar is an underdog against Rayanne dos Santos. Carlos Hernandez is an underdog against Tatsuro Taira. Stephanie Egger is an underdog. Steve Garcia, Shannon Ross, Kenan Song, Anthony Smith, André Muniz, Jamie Mullarkey, Sumudaerji, and Chris Gutierrez.
Okay, I'm going to go with Kenan Song for my underdog pick this week.
Kenan Song, 2.24, as we see there. My underdog pick, I did not predict him, but I do think he has a chance. Jamie Mullarkey, 2.64 for him. I think that he has a shot at winning that fight. And in terms of favorite picks or parlay picks, what are you thinking of?
Okay, fights I'm looking at Jun Young Park and Melquizael Costa.
All right. So those two fights would be a 2.07. That means $100 will win 106. So total return 206, of course. For our bigger bettors, $250 will win 266. So about a $516 total return on that. Just two fights. So good way to double up there. In terms of parlay picks for me, I'm looking at a couple of fights. Tatsuro Taira is on my list. Melquizael Costa is also on my list as well. And I'm going with Khalil Rountree Jr. as that third pick. I think he hurts Anthony Smith pretty quickly in that fight. Now, $100 will return a total of $120 in profit, $220 in total return, and $250 will profit $300. So a total return of $550. So let's sign off on that note. This has been UFC Fight Night, Yadong Song versus Chris Gutierrez. Full card prediction video presented by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. Please hit the thumbs up on this video if you have not done so already. Goes a long way. We would definitely appreciate that. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel here at Boxing MMA Picks. And most importantly, we want to hear from you in the comments below. How do you feel about our picks? How do you feel about our underdog picks, our favorite picks, our parlays? What potential parlays are you considering? What potential props are you considering? Or, decision results and KO results and submission results, etc. Let that all be known in the comments. We're more than happy to have that conversation with you. But officially signing off, UFC Fight Night, Yadong Song versus Chris Gutierrez. Full card prediction video presented by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. He goes by Zan. I go by Harris in our usual fashion. Let's get this money.
Let's get it.